Redwood Hollow, Forest of Spirits. The Mason family, seeking an escape from the hustle and bustle of city life, decided to move into a remote cabin nestled deep within the dense forests of Redwood Hollow. The family consisted of James, the father, a rugged outdoorsman, Jenna, the mother, a writer seeking inspiration from nature, and their daughter Cassandra, a curious 12-year-old. The cabin was old but charming, with weathered wooden beams and a large stone fireplace. It sat on the edge of a small clearing, surrounded by towering trees whose branches intertwined to form a thick canopy overhead. The only road leading to it was a narrow dirt path, winding through the forest like a serpent. From the moment they arrived, they felt an uncanny stillness in the air. The forest was eerily quiet, devoid of the usual sounds of birds chirping and leaves rustling, but they chalked it up to their unfamiliarity with the place and set about settling in. The first few days passed uneventfully. The family explored the nearby trails, collected wildflowers, and fished in the crystal-clear stream that flowed nearby. However, as the days wore on, strange occurrences began to unsettle them. One evening, as the family sat around the fireplace, enjoying the warmth and each other's company, they heard a faint, distant voice calling Cassandra's name. The voice was soft, almost ethereal, and seemed to come from deep within the woods. Cassandra, intrigued, stood up to follow the sound, but James gently pulled her back. "Stay inside, Cassandra. It's getting dark," he said, his eyes narrowing as he peered out the window into the shadowy forest. The next morning, Cassandra reported hearing someone whispering her name outside her window during the night. Jenna dismissed it as a dream, but James couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Determined to uncover the source of these voices, James decided to venture deeper into the forest. He took his hunting rifle and a flashlight, promising Jenna he would be back before dusk. Cassandra watched him disappear into the trees, worry etched on her young face. As James trekked through the forest, he noticed the air growing colder and the light dimmer, even though it was still midday. The trees seemed to close in around him, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The voice called out again, clearer this time, and unmistakably human. "James, help me." James quickened his pace, pushing through the underbrush, his heart pounding. The voice sounded familiar, like someone he knew. He rounded a bend and found himself in a small clearing. There, standing in the center, was a figure shrouded in mist. It was his brother, David, who had disappeared years ago during a hunting trip in these very woods. "David!" James called out, his voice trembling with disbelief. David turned, his eyes hollow and vacant. "James, it's so cold. Help me." James took a step forward, but something held him back. A whisper, almost imperceptible, echoed in his mind. "It's not real. Don't trust it." Back at the cabin, Jenna grew increasingly anxious as dusk fell, and James had not returned. Cassandra clung to her, fear etched in her face. Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder this time, and all around them. "Jenna, come into the woods. We need you." Terrified, Jenna bolted the door and pulled Cassandra close. She whispered reassurances, though her heart pounded with dread. She could feel the ancient spirits watching, their malevolent presence pressing in on them from all sides. In the forest, James struggled against the pull of the spirit masquerading as his brother. He gritted his teeth and forced himself to turn away, stumbling back through the trees. The whispers grew more insistent, more desperate, but he kept moving, driven by the need to protect his family. Finally, He burst out of the forest and into the clearing where the cabin stood. Jenna threw open the door, relief flooding her features as she saw him. James quickly bolted the door behind him and collapsed into her arms, breathless and shaken. "We can't stay here," he gasped. "The spirits, they can mimic our voices. They tried to lure me." Jenna nodded, her face pale. "We need to leave at first light, first." That night, the family huddled together, the whispers surrounding the cabin but unable to penetrate its walls. They knew they were being watched, but they held on to each other, drawing strength from their bond. As dawn broke, they gathered their belongings and quickly made their way to the car. The forest seemed to watch them go, the ancient spirits retreating into the shadows, their whispers fading with the morning light. They piled into the car and James turned the key, but the engine wouldn't start. He tried again and again, his frustration mounting. Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder than ever, surrounding them in a cacophony of voices. "James, Jenna, Cassandra, come to us." The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees leaning in like silent sentinels. Desperation set in as James and Jenna tried to calm Cassandra, who was sobbing in the back seat. Suddenly, the car doors flew open, wrenched from their hinges by an unseen force. The family was dragged from the car, their screams swallowed by the oppressive darkness of the forest. The whispers turned into mocking laughter as the ancient spirits claimed their victims, their voices echoing through the woods. The cabin stood silent and empty, a grim reminder of the family that had once sought refuge there. In the depths of Redwood Hollow, the spirits were appeased, their hunger sated for now. But the forest remained, waiting for the next unwary souls to venture into its grasp, lured by the whispering voices that promised safety but delivered only doom. Like and subscribe for more chilling stories.